Good morning. It's time for another Read Aloud with Mrs. Linville. And today we're going to be doing Lucas the Littlest Lizard. This is a real tongue twister, so bear with me. Lucas the Lizard was little and brown and lived at the zoo in the heart of the town. He shared his abode with a frill neck named Fred, the star of the zoo in his youth, so he said. So they had so few visitors, Lucas was sure that lizards were really a terrible bore. One day he asked Fred, "Where are our spectators?" "They're off," grumbled Fred, "watching green alligators. It's time for the seal show. They're feeding the tigers. There's a new exhibit of hairy black spiders. To marvel at monkeys, they'll wander for miles, but nobody seems to care much for reptiles." "Surely," said Lucas, "you have to be wrong. It seems a visitor's coming along." But Lucas the Lizard was in for a fright when a sour-faced gent looked at him with spite and declared, I'm sure you'll agree, there are so many more interesting creatures to see than lizards." He sauntered away. Lucas's heart sank in dismay. Lucas just couldn't believe it was true, but his tiny reflection gave him a clue. It wasn't his being a lizard at all. Nobody came because he was small. Lucas the Lizard thought each day and night, and then he woke up one morning and said with delight, "I have an idea. I've thought up a plan. I'll bring in the people. I know that I can. Just watch me. I'll be the new star of the zoo. If seals can do tricks, then a lizard can too." The very next day he was up at first light to rehearse all his tricks and get everything right. He walked on his hands and he danced on his toes. He balanced a wobbly stick on his nose. He hopped on one foot and he stood on his head, but no one was watching apart from old Fred. Lucas gazed down at the seal pool below where hundreds of people awaited the show and thought, the last thing I want to see is a lizard as small and as foolish as me. But Lucas was in for quite a surprise. Rain started falling and clouds darkened the skies. In a few seconds flat, the seals show was washed out and the people were angry. They started to shout, "If they want a show they shall see. But first, they will have to notice me." Lucas thought. Then a tiny girl said, "There's a lizard up there. Who stands on his head?" And before long the crowd had gathered around to see Lucas perform. They made not a sound. He walked on his hands and danced on his toes. He balanced a wobbly stick on his nose. He hopped on one foot and stood on his head and then took his bows beside his friend Fred. The crowd cheered for Lucas, the new star of the zoo, who couldn't believe that his dream had come true. Now Lucas knows what's more important of all, to believe in your heart that you're never too small. I hope you enjoyed this book. I was thinking about it as I finished reading it that Lucas just didn't give up. He thought that he was too small and none of the people wanted to see him, but he didn't give up. He just kept thinking day and night until he came up with an idea. And even when he got the idea, it still didn't seem to turn out right until it started to rain. And then he was noticed. And he remembered and did his tricks. He had the attention that he desired. But most importantly, he remembered to always keep going and pursuing his dream until he finally made it. And now what Lucas has to think about is a new dream that he can keep going toward. Thank you for tuning in.